All right, again, middle of a conversation. Should we record? Yes, we should. We were just talking about how there have been some kind of new breakthroughs in theories of physics that are really disconcerting. When I heard it, it was like my pulse quickened. And I know that that's a really nerdy response to something that happens in the scientific community. But it's just like, man, so what happened? It basically made it that some of the stuff that we've based all of our premises on for the last 20 years, 25 years, might be wrong.
He was talking about the idea of inflation.
Inflation of the universe, where heavenly bodies are moving ever faster away from each other. So it's almost like there's a negative gravity. I guess we could call it some kind of something like anti-gravity. It is obviously stronger. It's a stronger force of the universe than gravity.
Yeah.
As of right now, they're calling it dark energy. I think what he was talking about was like dark energy just doesn't work. What he was saying was it requires a certain amount of sparsity. Is that a word? If that's a word, first of all, I'd be surprised. The opposite of density, sparseness. It takes a certain amount of sparseness in the heavenly bodies. They have to be spaced out enough for this equation that essentially produces dark energy to start working. So there is a point before which it can't even start working. Which is interesting because it seems to say to me that if dark energy is a thing, it has to go all the way back. It has to go all the way back to the beginning of time. And
when
to
everything was created.
Right, and to infinite density. And that's, here's something really interesting, actually. I'm never going to get to that point I was trying to tell you.
No, I got you.
The theory for a long time was that there was the Big Bang. When it started, everything was traveling out as fast as it ever would. And then there may have been particles that joined together by gravitic force or by electromagnetism, and then fused together with heat and things like that, right? So it's not like the Big Bang spit out a whole bunch of preformed planets with rings and things like that. It just spit out a bunch of matter, and that matter clumped together, smashed into each other, and then eventually formed planets, and those planets with the gravity of their own start to collapse in on themselves, right? So the bigger they are, the smoother their surfaces and things like that. This is real life. So anyway, I can just say that. I'll say the bigger they are, if they're the same age.
What do you mean the smoother their surface?
So you know how there's that thing about the Earth is flatter than a pancake? There was So there was a geological study done about Kansas because they said that Kansas was flatter than a pancake. If you basically took an average pancake, blew it up to the size of Kansas, the bumps in the pancake compared to the dips in the surface would be higher than the mountains and lower than the valleys of Kansas. So Kansas is literally flatter than a pancake. Interestingly enough, when you scale that same pancake up to the size of the Earth also is flatter than a pancake, including the Marianas Trench, including Mount Everest. Just the texture of a pancake would be not as smooth as the Earth.
Yeah, so I heard that, and I think this might have been Neil deGrasse Tyson, say that it was smoother than a cue ball.
That's right. He did, actually. So if you have two planets that are the same age, the bigger one is going to be smoother than the smaller one because it has more gravity to pull everything toward the center.
Yes.
So as our mountains come up, we've got rocks that decay and fall down to the valleys. So the mountains fill in the valleys. And the only reason that any planet would have any kind of re-replicating texture is if it's alive.
Yeah.
And then you would have shifting of tectonic plates and volcanic action.
Io is one of Jupiter's moons. Anyway, it's just littered with volcanoes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
How big is it?
It's like
this?
It's like this.
Wow. It's amazing. It's about, I'd say it's about yay big.
I believe that's the one.
Yeah, it keeps getting bigger every time you tell the story. Where were we?
So we were talking about it wouldn't just spit out planets, right?
Right,
and
okay.
Then,
if the Big Bang happened, it would have just spit out debris. And that debris would eventually form planets, and mass big enough eventually creates enough pressure that there is enough heat that it ignites, and then you have potentially a star. The Big Bang Theory had everything starting out moving incredibly fast outward from everything else. And then gravity, which is working from day one, is pulling everything every particle in the universe is pulling on every other particle in the universe a little bit.
Gotcha. Because we had that conversation the other night.
So when a planet has enough particles, it reaches this critical mass where it takes more of a shock to get some of the particles to fly out into space. And when it has enough of a gravitic field, then you get this ignited core. When you get this ignited core, then you get a magnetic shield around the planet. And when you get the magnetic shield, now you have elements staying in. Okay, so you've got like, so helium has escape velocity. Escape velocity basically means when I pop a balloon, helium particles move up through the sky faster and faster and faster, and they get to the speed of a rocket. Okay, they're moving that fast through the atmosphere. When they hit the edge of the atmosphere, they can go out. There are very few particles that have that property. That's where you get a planet that can have a self-sustaining system. I like the cosmology sciences because not only can it happen, but given enough time, it would happen.
Yeah.
Let's get back to this. So the Big Bang happens. Everything is moving out as fast as possible, and it's always slowing down because it's always gravitically pulled back to everything else that's moving away from it. Okay. The further it gets from each other, the mathematics behind it, the further it gets, the less it's affecting. So, like, let's say you've got a planet with a mass of 1, you've got another planet with a mass of 1, and they are 1 unit apart. Okay, 1 distance apart. When you increase that distance to 2 distance units apart, whatever those be, they are affecting each other 1/4 as much.
Okay.
But they still do pull each other. The idea was the universe explodes, expands, reaches a point where it just, like, the movement eventually stops. If stuff is still moving outward, it's like, how much further does it have to go while always being pulled less and less toward itself before it actually stops?
Okay.
It's a long way.
Yeah.
But the theory was that it would reach that stasis, and then it would start to collapse back in. And it would take, about the same amount of time to collapse back in. Because as it gets closer and closer, it should speed up more and more and more. And then a big collapse, basically. The counterpart to the Big Bang. So what they're finding now is that planets and solar systems and galaxies are actually moving away from each other at an ever-increasing speed. They can tell that because of the redshift in the color spectra. Brilliant.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic. Anyway, who would have known that the Doppler effect, which was found however many years ago, is now coming back into play to give us a better idea of what's happening in the cosmos. It's absolutely amazing. With the planets accelerating in their expansion, the Big Bang is a little bit, it seems like it might be headed out the window. If planets are accelerating faster and faster while they're being acted on by gravity, they're trying to save it with this idea of dark energy, which is the force. It's like, essentially, it's like anti-gravity, which pushes things out at an ever-accelerating rate.
Okay.
This is where the cornerstone of the physics of space-time break down in my mind. This is as far as I can get with it. The speed of light is like the speed limit of the universe. Imagine if you had 2 heavenly bodies that were moving apart at 51% of the speed of light.
Okay.
The problem is that with the theory of relativity, that's impossible because they can't be moving apart from each other relative to each other faster than the speed of light. That's where I'm like, well, then why are we even talking about, relatives, like, even coming close to the speed of light? The interesting thing is, like, at CERN, we can bring a single particle up near the speed of light, very close, And so you've got this one unseeable with the naked eye particle that starts looping around this tunnel that is stories high.
Yeah.
And it has to be that big because that's how big the particle gets by the time it hits that speed.
So crazy.
Bananas.
That's so crazy.
And that's why it would take infinite energy to get a single particle to the speed of light. So then you've got the problem of that light acts like a particle sometimes. How does light act like a particle if it requires infinite energy to move a particle at the speed of light? I mean, we know that there's not infinite energy in every photon. These are questions I would like to ask someone who is 20 IQ points smarter than me. Or 100, 1,000. Let's just go for 1 million. 1 million IQ points smarter. If that describes you, leave it in the comments.
I found something really quick.
Me.
The Doppler effect, 1842.
Damn! Damn! That's amazing. 180 years ago. 178 years ago.
Is named after Austrian physicist Christian Doppler, who described the phenomenon in 1842.
Sweet. You know how he told everyone about it? He's like, I have a new theory. That's how he did it. He was on the world's fastest hamster-drawn buggy. It's a fact.
Hamster?
Look it up. Look it up. Hamster-drawn buggy.
How many hamster power are we talking?
What kind of... Oh, man. They measured it differently back then, so it's really hard to say.
Oh, it was a different time.
Yeah. Well, hamsters were beefy back then. Our hamsters today, soft.
Oh, yeah.
Get out of here,
They're
hamsters.
bred for, like, playthings and, like,
Breakfast.
softball practice.
Man, I thought I was going dark. Mercy. At least in mine, you could kill him humanely. Over the line, Sierra. That was too far.
I agree.
This is where the theory of relativity could kind of put itself back together for me. If you had two planets traveling apart from each other, apart from the center of the universe, let's imagine that there's a center of the universe. I mean, I heard somebody say that there was no center of the universe, and this is like a guy.
Okay.
It's like an actual guy. A real person said this.
Okay. He's got some credentials.
500 to 700 more IQ points than me.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
IQ percentage points than me.
Sure.
So my idea was, like, if you've got these two planets moving that fast away from each other, would they just pop out of each other's existence? The light from one couldn't catch up to the other to be observed by the other.
Right.
But would they physically pop out of the other's existence? If that's what happens, this theory of relativity kind of makes sense to me again. The reason I see this as a possibility is that there's something about there being an observer that changes the laws of physics.
Yes.
As the observer, let's say planet A, when planet B starts moving away from you at the speed of light relative to you, then it pops out of existence to you. It seems like it could be possible, and it could make everything sort of make sense again. The thing we have such a hard time, well, I mean, just in my brain, then it's like, okay, so now it's not, you don't have two things moving apart from each other at the speed of light anymore. Now you've got one thing that exists to itself, you've got another thing that exists to itself, and not only can they not see the light from the other, they actually don't exist together. Then I'm like, okay, we're back within the confines of the speed limit of the universe.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
What else?
The reason we started this whole thing was because we were talking about that there are parts of the universe that have slowed down. Is that correct?
What he was saying was that there are pockets that aren't sort of obeying the same laws, right? So like the dark energy, if there is dark energy out there, it seems to only act on little pockets of space. And that the galaxy would be obeying it. One galaxy would, another galaxy wouldn't.
Okay.
And that there are pockets in those galaxies that are doing the same things. And this is all just in an equation. Okay. So here's what I'm hearing. This theory of dark energy is breaking down quickly. I mean, it's new. It's a fairly new theory, but it's just not really panning out how they hoped. They put this forward and said, okay, here's what we see. What we want to believe is that everything works how we've always thought it works, and what we actually see is that it's not working out that way. And our equations don't account for the movement that we actually see happening. And as long as your equations don't account for those things, then you can't really predict the movement. So they see this increasing expansion, and what they do is they try to figure out what kind of equation does it take to solve this problem. And then if it works, and everything equalizes again and does explain the movement that we see, then they would adopt that. It's still a theory, always open for interpretation, open to criticism, and potentially to being taken down based on new information, but it receives its credentials as a theory. The theory being the highest achievement in science. Before that, it's just a kind of a hypothesis. So it's just kind of a hypothesis. It's just bring me back on track again.
So we are listening to him describe these pockets in the universe.
That's right. I'm going too fast here, and I'm losing my place. So Sierra's going to keep bringing me back online. The interesting thing about that is that it seems like the laws of physics may be different in different areas. The thing I was trying to explain to you that night, the reason that it freaked me out so bad is because...
I get it.
Here's the thing, too. I know it doesn't matter to me. It's not going to matter in my lifetime or my great-great-grandchildren's lifetimes. A comet is a much bigger threat than how the expansion of the universe is affecting us on Earth right now in this, 80 years that we have to live, or this 1,000, 2,000 years that our progeny have to be here. Whatever.
Yeah, 2,000 years, like we were talking about the other day. If we get there.
If we get there. If we can just not destroy ourselves by then. If we can just not screw this place up beyond all recognition to the point where it says, enough is enough, I'm starting over.
Yeah.
The idea that I was trying to loop you in on with that was we've got our idea of physics, and we have always thought that it applies to the entire universe.
Yeah.
And so this theory of relativity was like it had this extraordinary explanatory power. Then you get to this point where it's like, well, maybe physics works differently in different pockets of the universe. And it's
Yeah.
like, how do we even study that? Imagine a circle. And inside the circle is everything that we know. Outside the circle is everything we don't know that we don't know. So we don't even realize it is there to be learned yet.
Yeah.
And the edge of the circle, the circumference of the circle, is the things that we are just learning. As the circle expands to include new things that we didn't know before, the circumference of the circle is growing as well, which means we're always realizing more of what we don't know.
Totally.
This thing that he was talking about, it's almost like if you could take that circumference and make one little part of it a window, and we just got a glimpse into the great beyond that we won't know how to study for who knows how many hundreds of years, even at the rate that we're going.
Yeah.
We will have to figure out entirely new ways of observing just to get an idea.
Sure.
If he's right.
Yeah, but it doesn't take away any bit of the progress that we've made in these areas. I mean,
Maybe.
No, but I mean, because we can still use what we know to observe what works in the way that we have already established.
Right, and it works as well as it works. The early calendar, 8 months long, it just wasn't that good. The month wasn't a lunar month. What did you say? The lunar month is the most...
The lunar calendar is...
the lunar calendar.
The best calendar because, I mean, like, we can all see the moon. We can all see what stage it's in.
Right.
Then you just make a calendar based on...
But what it
the
doesn't
phases of the
do,
moon.
it's not like the moon goes in its phases exactly 12 times for every revolution of the Earth around the sun. They're different variables. So we go by revolutions around the sun. Every day we make it not quite 1 degree. So it takes 365 days to wrap the circumference of the 360-degree circle. So it's about a degree a day that we're moving around the sun. I don't know why they said it was the best calendar.
I think it was just for everyone.
It's the simplest for us here. We don't know where we're at around the sun.
Right.
So yeah, I get it. So the original calendar being 8 months long, that had to change because it didn't really stick to anything.
Yeah.
So as far as our cosmos go. So now we've honed it in. First, it was this 365-day year. That wasn't quite good enough. Okay. I mean, it almost fit, except there's a little bit further that it needs to go at the end of 4 years.
Yep.
Every 4 years, it needs to go one more day to get all the way around. So then we introduced the leap year. We add a day to the calendar, set everything straight.
Yeah.
Mother Nature takes a sigh of relief as if she cares. But it helps us explain things. It's gotten more and more specific just so that we can keep everything straight.
Yeah.
The thing I was thinking about when we first started talking tonight was how we absolutely could have theories that have stood for 70, 80 years.
Yeah.
We find something new, we have to scrap them. We either have to
Really?
find... Yeah.
Just like that.
No, not just like that. It would be so much fight to try to keep them in place, such as with dark energy. We try to introduce this new variable to explain this movement that we absolutely see happening. We can't stay in the old paradigm, so we've got to modify it somehow to give it better explanatory power, or here's the terrifying option, we've got to go back to the drawing board. The reason that is not as likely to happen is because as these theories have stood, the test of time, they have had really good explanatory power. So let's say it explains 99% of the stuff that we see. If that is just a theory that is really good, and there is a totally alternate theory that is better, that does 99.5 or 99.9% of everything. It explains all of that. And then we're just looking for new variables within that theory, we would have to scrap. I mean, not even the theory of relativity is safe. Not even the Doppler effect is safe, as it is, for like light spectra and things like that. It may be something totally different. Most likely it's right, because it really does it for us. But now we're seeing this red shift that is not quite as red as we thought it was going to be in certain pockets. And it's like, maybe we really do have to just erase the whole thing and start fresh, which is crazy to think about.
That night you went, whoa, when he said that.
Did I?
Yeah. Whoa.
I remember like I got chills, but it wasn't like chills of excitement. It was chills of like, oof.
Terror.
Really doesn't have anything
It's just
to do
sort of
with
I mean, like, it's a gutting feeling to know all this work, all of this, it's all got to be questioned.
All the time that's gone into creating a system that has this kind of explanatory power might just not be it. So we followed this road, not as far as we can go. I'm sure there are going to be new theories that come up that start to try to explain that, and maybe one of them hits.
Yeah.
And if it does, it increases the explanatory power of the system that we have. If it can make that theory stronger, then we keep our old theory and we keep the new variable. If it can't answer it, the most likely thing we are to do is scrap the new variable and try to figure out a new variable that helps our old theory better. I'm just saying, at some point, there may be someone, and we are talking about an Einstein type. Man, here's another really interesting thing. If you come up through an education system that essentially presents all of the things that have stood for hundreds of years as fact, you wouldn't really go looking anywhere else. You would go looking to new variables. You wouldn't go looking to a new theory that replaces relativity. You would go looking for a new variable that explains relativity.
Oh, I see.
So if we're on the wrong path, how far down this path will we go before we realize, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's why it's going to be a hard-fought battle for relativity.
Yeah.
And for thermodynamics, and because it's done so well.
Yeah. Oh, then he got into that might be the idea for like a multiverse instead of some other place that people always think of and like is always in TV and movies and stuff. This other universe.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's just right. It's just like right out there.
I have a couple of thoughts on that. Can I have a pen? Let me make myself some notes so you don't have to keep babysitting me. So the multiverse theory that he was presenting was that there may be universes that are in the same space that we are. You're talking about overlapping dimensions.
So he was talking about the idea that because there could be some places in our universe that follow different rules of physics, it could just be different. I think that's what he meant by like, that could be the idea for like a multiverse theory.
I'm going to try to put into words what I drew out for you the other day. A point. How many dimensions are required to make a point?
0.
Most people would say 1, but it is 0. How many dimensions does it require to make a line?
1.
So a 2-dimensional plane that stretches out to the edges of infinity only requires 2 dimensions. Now imagine a tic-tac-toe board where the lines are intersecting each other on the same 2-dimensional space. If you can imagine that each of those lines has its own physics. Where the lines intersect, their physics would potentially affect each other, even though they would have no perception of each other.
Okay.
So like I did the other day, I drew those intersecting lines, and then I cut one of the pieces of paper halfway through, and I cut the other piece of paper halfway through, and I slid them together. So now you've got 2-dimensional planes intersecting with each other that would have no representation of each other. And if they had their own physics, their physics would be affecting each other at the intersection point. If you just imagine, like, that could happen on a 3rd-dimensional level, where we are actually intersecting another 3-dimensional level within the same 4-dimensional framework, and we have no perception of that dimension.
Our planet? Our solar system?
Hard to say. See, this is the thing where it's like we can see it, we can very easily imagine the 2 pieces of paper that are tucked into each other and they're intersecting because we're looking at it from 3 dimensions. If you could look at it from 4 dimensions, you would see just how easy it is for 3rd-dimensional reality to intersect another 3rd-dimensional reality at a 90-degree angle that doesn't exist here. In the line, there is no 90-degree angle. right? You've got a straight line. On a plane, you've got a 90-degree angle. In third dimension, you've got another 90-degree angle, and in the fourth dimension, there exists another 90-degree angle.
Yeah.
On the piece of paper, like a plane consciousness couldn't fathom a third 90-degree angle.
Right.
And in the same way, we can't really fathom a fourth 90-degree angle. Where does that go? Don't know.
Right.
I've never seen it. I can't even imagine it.
So why talk about it? If we have no idea.
It might have explanatory power for why physics might be acting differently in different pockets of the universe.
Okay.
And that's the kind
Gotcha.
of thing where, like, if we could accurately study that, if we could come up with a theory that actually explains that, then we could start looking into, like, a third dimensional representation of a fourth dimension. We could essentially prove a fourth dimension.
A 4-dimensional what?
Just a fourth dimension. So we're never going to observe the fourth dimension,
Correct.
but we might be able to observe the effects of the fourth dimension on the third dimension.
Gotcha.
That's breakthrough stuff. I can't wait to see, like, in my lifetime. Oh man, I hope we get to see that. There are a lot of good men and women working on that problem right now. I mean, there are, and it's like, how cool is it that the human species has made it out of the caves, out of the huts, and into this place where, like, we don't have to forage and go get water and make sure that we're keeping our fires up. And, you know, now we've built so much that we have a small group of the population that speaks this high-level math.
Totally.
Now, if you can imagine, like 2,000 years ago, how we were talking about this morning, how many people were literate?
Right.
How many people were literate
Oh my gosh.
in their language?
Yeah.
They spoke it, and that's it. They
That's
couldn't
it.
read it. They couldn't write it. Probably 99+% of the population back then. Imagine I don't know, at this rate and at an ever-increasing rate of learning, if we can just make it another 500 years, we might all just have this operational language of mathematics that are happening now that's just like, oh, it's kiddie stuff. You know, this is kindergarten stuff. It's possible. Well, now, you know, you don't just learn language and how to read and write. Now you learn mathematics and how to really read and write. Because our language is just something we make up.
Yeah.
Our mathematics is potentially our communication with the rest of the universe. If we can communicate with
Totally.
aliens, it's through mathematics.
Yeah.
Because mathematics, at least as I see it, mathematics are discovered, not created. We're not creating mathematics. We're trying to work within the framework of mathematics that we can already see
Totally.
to make equations that explain things.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Freaking A, right?
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I
we
think that's
do-
a really good
I
place to
do
stop.
drone on. Anyway, no, it's just exciting stuff to me.
Yeah.
Like, I love, man. You know, I really wish we didn't have to think about so much of this stuff that's like depressing and scary and all that, because this stuff turns me on, you know?
Yeah.
This really gets me going,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's just so much better.
I totally
Can we do
know.
this? Can we do this full time?
Yes. I love this is the first of
I'm not
like
talking about me and you. I'm talking about the world. Can we hate each other less and be less afraid of each other so that we can do more exciting stuff more often? So that we don't have to live in fear and just do all, you know, keep worrying about protecting ourselves and not worrying about things that are just like advancing us to the point where we might be able to save all the life that's on this planet, you know, by seeding a secondary planet. That would be pretty sweet, right?
yeah, that would be. I can't argue with the fact that that would be pretty sweet. However, it's all control right now.
We're kind of in a race, a technological race. There is the two parts of the force, essentially. You've got the light side and the dark side. The light side is racing toward saving everything, as many people as possible, and the plant life and the animal life, and getting us out of here so that if something happens to one of the planets, the other one still has A, the technology to satellite again, and B, if everything is wiped out in one place, it's still preserved in the other place. So then that's where we reach a type 1 civilization, as Michio Kaku talks about.
Yeah.
That race, I mean, it requires an immense amount of technology to get there. At the same time, the dark side is moving our technology ever more toward getting us controlled. We have the technology right now to build a virus. We can make a virus from scratch.
Yeah.
We've had things in our past like Agent Orange, which just destroyed Vietnam for generations. There are still kids in Vietnam who are born with severe birth defects. heads that are 3 times the size that their head should be.
Oh my God.
Cleft palates that are beyond saving. One kid's stomach didn't have skin covering it when he was born. So he's
What?
got a skin graft from his father, which thank goodness his body accepted it
Oh my God.
just to cover his organs.
Jeez.
We did that to a country for decades. That's where technology can take us. Technology can take us to the atom bomb, where we can split the atom and destroy everything within hundreds of mile radius for the near future and, in a lot of cases, the distant future. And then we've got, the other side. Anyway, we're just in this race. It's like, are we going to save ourselves first, or are we going to destroy ourselves first?
Yeah.
We're all kind of waking up to the idea that the evil side is going to win as long as the good side does nothing. Now, the good side doesn't want anything to do with the methods and modes of the evil side. But we have to go there. How do you preserve it other than that? They're willing to kill whole other countries of people
Yeah.
with things like Agent Orange and with viruses and with potentially with vaccines. It's extermination if we don't step up.
Totally.
For that reason, the good people don't want to do things that they consider bad. I'm worried that the dark side has a leg up. They absolutely have a leg up.
Of course they do.
It's Batman and the Joker. Batman's like catches the Joker from falling to his death. Why? Because he's Batman, and that's what he does. He saves lives. He doesn't kill people. Not even the Joker. How many times watching those movies have you thought to yourself, just drop him?
Yeah.
Just drop him.
Yeah.
You have to. You know what he's going to do. If you don't, he's going to do the same thing that he did before.
Right.
And we're at that point. And I fear a little bit that we're past that point, to a point where we don't even have it in our power to drop him. We don't even know who he is.
Yeah.
And we need to find out.
Uh-huh.
And that person's got to go. Not that person, but that group of people, that whole network of people got to go. And it's got to be good people that do it.
Tell the people, babe.
I don't know.
What do they do?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I don't think I'm ready to talk about it on here just yet.
Well, no, but I mean, I think it's important that if you hear a message on this podcast that you agree with, I want to be able to change people's mind too.
Sure.
But if you hear something on here that you like, that you think's important or something, share it.
Yeah, share it. Seriously, like it and favorite it and do whatever else you got to do. But yeah, copy the link and share it. That war is going to be won based on a network. We have a lot of us, good people on planet Earth. I generally have faith in people. What I find is the people that I meet who are, I hope, an accurate representation of the world. They are not evil to the core. We have very different ideas on certain things. There are a lot of the one issue voters out there that I'm on the other side of that issue and whatever. That said, they all feel the same oppression that I feel.
Yeah.
They feel unrepresented by their government and the taxes that they pay. They feel that we are being duped, we're being lied to, our information is being used against us, our brains themselves are being used against us.
Yeah.
It's a science in how to distract people. How to distract people and how to keep them distracted is a science.
Totally. Yeah.
And it's being used against us.
And they've already done all of the research.
Yeah, so I don't really care about your one issue vote, what that goes to. I mean, we can disagree violently, and I don't consider you on the wrong side of things. That said, at least 90% of the population genuinely wants to heal the world, heal the relationships around the world, stop the nonsense, the racism, the hatred, bigotry of all kinds.
Yeah.
Those are the people who have to fight this fight. Unfortunately, those are not the people who have been attracted to positions of power and control. We have to learn how to tap into that, if only to defend ourselves from what's coming in our future. We have to do it.
Yeah.
If you consider yourself a good person, get armed right now.
Yeah.
We need you.
I think start having conversations with people, much like the conversation you had with that guy today. Just start asking people, do you trust the government? Do you trust the media? How do you feel
Do you have
on...
a network?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to expand your network?
Totally.
We need to protect each other. And that really is the thing. If we only protect ourselves, we're gone. We're done.
Yeah.
And so, there are a lot of things that I know a lot of people personally who would say, well, that's just not my fight. It's like, it better become your fight. Mm-hmm. Because after they come for their rights, guess who's they're coming for next?
Right.
It's yours.
Yeah.
And when your fight isn't everybody else's fight, you're gone too.
Yep.
We got to start learning to fight for something because we believe, even if it's something that we don't agree with, that other people have the right to live. We need to protect the rights of other people, and I do mean everyone. Mm-hmm. So we can talk about all that later, but we should call it for right now.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Totally.
And yeah, we will soon enough. We'll get a name for whatever this thing is that we're doing here. We're looking at flying an author out so that we can do a podcast with him. He wrote a book called How to Enslave the Planet, and it is fantastic. Mm-hmm. It is excellent. If he comes out, we'll probably record several podcasts because he's a brilliant guy. Check it out on Amazon. Yeah, we'll catch you on the flippity.
On the flippity flip.
On the flippity flip.